what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. I am joined by none other than HellHades. Hades, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, Ash, I'm doing good, man. Doing really good. Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
It is a pleasure, man. This is, I think, what, our third or fourth? I'm losing count of the collabs, but always a pleasure to have you on, man. The king of Raid Shadow Legends. We're going to talk about bosses today. This is a video I've never done anything like this. Have you ranked the bosses before?
No. Actually, It's a really cool idea. Yeah, looking forward to this.
Unbelievable, right? We found an idea that neither of us have done. It's pretty crazy.
You don't have a better bad idea than this?
This is the best bad idea we have, sir. By far.
But we're going to rank all the bosses as we see them from easiest to most difficult. And just kind of a caveat, because as we were getting our list together in preparation for today's video, we realized, Hades, that it really depends on who you have, right? Like, a lot of these bosses are super easy if you have all the right champions, right? So, yeah, kind of grading on a curve here, pretending you don't have all the perfect champions. Yeah.
Once you've got a setup right, suddenly that boss feels easier to you. So this is almost like, you know, if you're just starting the game, these are the ones that we think would be harder in different orders. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, like almost I don't know if it's fair to say, but almost like the order that you would tackle these bosses if you're progressing in the game. You know, if it was like that, it's not as simple. Oh, what am I doing here? Okay, so let's start out with the easiest. You wanna lead it off?
Yeah, well, I think Minotaur. So I think Minotaur, basically, I mean, and you need it from the start. So it's kind of like grinding up your champions. And some people say to me, yeah, I don't see many videos from you about Minotaur. And I'm like, well, literally you could run anybody in there and you'll get the job done. Like once you've got yourself some stats and some gear, I feel like anybody can run Minotaur. So it's got to be the easiest for me.
It's probably the first dungeon, to your point. I guess those in the potion keeps, right? In terms of difficulty. But yeah, it's I've never thought it was that challenging. There's not much to the fight, right?
No, exactly. No, I think the only challenge you might have is if you're very early game and you're trying to beat level 15 and you don't have anyone with masteries or anything like that yet. So the very first few times you try to beat it, it's tough. But after that, I think you just kind of walk through it. Absolutely.
And I will say that, like, I remember the very beginning of the game, the grind that is your very first champion masteries, right?
Yeah. Well, so I played the game before you could buy masteries at all with gems.
Same, yeah.
And
it was brutal.
When you're trying to grind 5 at the same time, oh man.
It's brutal. You're like, oh my God, this game's impossible, right? Because you already are just got acquainted with the chickens and how that works, right? And then you're like, oh my God, I have to spend 8 hours to get, some masteries.
I'm sorry, if we did something to upset you, I'm sure it was inadvertent.
I think you're probably the same now, but I think even on my free-to-play, I just saved all my gems and bought my first masteries. Do you do the same?
Yeah, normally first couple, actually. First couple of champs, just buy the masteries, and then the rest of the game feels a lot easier.
Yeah. And speaking of easy, let's go ahead to the next category here. Number 2 is going to be the keeps. We just put them all together instead of ranking them all. But I feel like the keeps have gotten a lot easier. I'm such a huge fan of level 16 through 20, although I will say that they're not super easy, I mean, for non-endgame players. But I think that overall, all the keeps would be the next level of difficulty. Do you agree there?
Yeah, and certainly level 15 was always pretty easy. And I think there's so many more options for champions now that do the abilities you need. So there's a lot of epics that can step in even at level 50 and kind of do the remove a shield or block buffs or whatever. So it does feel like there's more options now.
Yeah, and even with the new levels too, like for people who have been playing a while, I'm sure you're the same, but I gotta give credit where credit is due, Hades. It's just like, dude, it's so much less oppressive now that you can actually farm level. Like, I don't have to spend an hour farming to just max out that one champion. Now it's like, okay, maybe in 3 runs I'll get enough superior potions or whatever,
It's such a good upgrade. I don't know why they've not taken that same sort of approach in different areas of the game. It just, well, I think we spoke in the last time we had videos actually around time spent in the game. And that was like a big thumbs up from me. It's like, yes, you've done the right job on this one. This has really reduced the time you need in those keeps. So yeah, it's been good actually.
Absolutely. Okay, what do we have next here?
Yeah, so I think Dragon. I think Dragon's like the first dungeon you really need to farm. Everybody needs speed gear. Everybody needs lifesteal gear, accuracy gear at the start. And not only is it the first dungeon you need to start, I think it's the easiest one in terms of like mechanics of a boss to get to grips with. So as long as you bring some poison in and a team that can clear some waves, really you should be able to kind of deal with it pretty fast.
Absolutely. And I love it too because you just made the point, but accuracy, speed, lifesteal, like in the early game, those are your most important, artifact sets. So it makes sense it's the easiest dungeon. What is your, like, just out of curiosity, what is like your main team revolve around, like a couple champions for Dragon?
So I pulled Xavier about 3 months ago, and since then Xavier's been like my go-to for Dragon. I love the mechanics. I love the setup. So I run like a Taurus, Draco, Xavier, nuke build. Basically, those three nuke the whole wave. I have a reset, nuke the next wave, and then the same champions deal with the dragon. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's
even
awesome.
25
man.
actually.
Yeah,
does a good job in 25.
Yeah, that's true. I don't actually have Xavier. I wish I did, man. Wish I did. So I run basically like an all-force team with Bad L. I just go all nuker with like Abyss and Fushan and Sisia Flametongue. And it's pretty effective run. And then sometimes I can add food. I don't really need, obviously, all 4 of those. Do you ever dragon food farm or not really?
Not overly. I just feel like I've always got so many potions that I don't really need to. So brews. I have a lot of brews that I just feel like I don't really need to. But I can see the benefit of it if you're totally free to play and trying to get the most out of your energy. But yeah, not personally.
Yep, I'm the same boat. I seldom do. I should, because if I'm auto battling, why not, right? It doesn't matter.
There's that. If you're battling overnight, kind of just should anyway. But yeah,
exactly.
I don't tend to.
All right, so next up is actually a little curveball. I don't think anybody will see this one coming, but it's the Magma Dragon. We both find, as I show like a completely pay-to-win team on the screen.
There was no other way.
But we both find the Magma Dragon so easy because we have all these void legendaries. No, but in all sincerity, we find the Magma Dragon to be by far the easiest boss out of the Doom Tower. The mechanics are fairly simple compared to the other bosses. You don't want, obviously, like an HP burn champion. You do want a provoke champion, right? It's all about getting those provokers in there, and that's basically it. And then keep the team alive, right?
Yeah, and I think we said, because there's probably going to be comments below like, oh, hold on a minute, what about if it's level 120 Magma Dragon?
Yes.
And look, let's be fair, that at that stage, the Magma Dragon hits super hard. But in terms of mechanics of a boss, understanding a team that you could pull together, I think it's pretty simple. I think, compared to the other Doom Tower bosses as well, it's really easy.
Yeah, Magma Dragon is the only, to that point, it's the only boss I can beat. I believe there might be 2, but on my free to play, like it's the one that's it's just easier to get kind of a handle on because the pieces that you need, to your point, are just like fairly basic, fairly straightforward. So you guys let us know if you disagree with that Magma Dragon, the Doom Tower boss early on, because we put him before, the next boss, which is actually Ice Golem. So
so go on.
No, go ahead, because this is one of those conversations about Ice Golem. You can make a very strong case that he belongs more difficult, but let's talk about him.
So for me, I feel like he's easy to beat. Okay, Ice Golem's easy to beat, but not easy to beat fast. And so I feel like he's the next easiest to beat in terms of a boss, but if you want to get like a speed run going, it's actually really difficult to beat. So you could easily slip him down a couple more once you've got your team's kind of settled for a Finite or for a Spider or whatever. But in terms of just beating it and beating level 20, I think he's easier than the next ones.
No, I agree with you. It's tricky, right? Because with the other traditional dungeons, Spider and Fire Knight, more so than Ice Golem, if you have the right champions, they're definitely easier than Ice Golem, I feel like. If you have the perfect setup, which we'll talk about in a moment. But Ice Golem, there is no really perfect setup. Who do you lean on most for Ice Golem? Like, who's one of your favorite champs?
Yeah, so, I mean, I tend to use Phoenix as one of my main champions.
I love that dude.
I love him as well. I kind of slept on Phoenix for a long time. Didn't really use him, sitting in my vault. And I did a guide on him, and I was like, actually, this dude is awesome. Like, absolutely smacks.
Absolutely. That
and
A1.
Not revive out.
Yeah, second hardest hitting A1 in terms of multipliers in the game next to Candrafon. And, dude, you look at it at first, I'm sure you're the same way. You're like, why does he have a block revive on his A1? Like, come on here, Plarium. And then you're like, oh, that's because it hits like a truck. That's why.
Really hard. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
And I like using Fenax 2 Hades when on like ally attack teams as my debuffer against a boss, because he has a decreased speed and decreased defense on his A3, which is handy,
Yeah. No, he's actually a really solid champ all round, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I know you did a video on her somewhat recently as well. She's long been one of my favorite champions. My big shout out here, and I'm playing her in the background, is Dark Elhain. Really good for obvious reasons against the Ice Golem because she attacks, auto attacks whenever anybody else is frozen. So
yeah,
big fan. All right, what do we got next, Hades?
Yeah, well, I think Fire Knight next. And I think easily you could kind of argue Spider and Fire Knight either way. But for me, Fire Knight is the easiest one to kind of get to grips with. And certainly a lot of people come to me and ask for takeovers. And generally, if it's a dungeon, they ask for a takeover on Spider, not Fire Knight. So Fire Knight's all about, getting enough hits in, getting enough... almost like setting up a team that can actually deal with waves. And then you need almost like a different team that can deal with the boss. That's why it's tricky, but certainly once you've got to grips with the mechanics of it, I think it's probably next on the list of a consistent run that you can get going.
Absolutely, and the mechanics too are pretty basic to understand, right? We want multi-hitters on our A1, turn meter manipulation, and to your point, I think that you put it very, very well there in terms of you almost need that separate strategy, right? Because the waves, they have a ton of HP, especially as you scale higher. But the good news is there's a lot of champions that can absolutely just destroy Fire Knight, as I lose here with a random team on Ice Golem. But Fire Knight, I just proved she's naked. I have Dark Elhain naked with no artifacts. That will explain it.
There is nothing wrong with you.
Doesn't help, yeah.
But with Fire Knight, though, I mean, for me, it's like using allures and cold hearts, like those type of champions. It's almost like a cheat code, Like that's how you hack. Similar to Spider, that's how you can hack Fire Knight. So if you have those champions, congratulations.
I will say though, like to beat Fire Knight 25, if you don't have allure, it's hard. Actually, it's actually it's a bit like Ice Golem. It's not so much it's really hard. It's hard to beat it with any sort of speed at all. So I feel like allure has become so crucial to Fire Knight 25. But up to 20, there's a whole bunch of champions. Armiga's great. Actually, Visix now is great, who comes as a login champ. Steel, which I know you love is great. So there's plenty of options.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. I wonder what a team would be with no allures, because like I've leaned so heavily on lures so long on Fire Knight and Cold Heart that it's just like, okay, well, all right.
Yeah, well, pretty much. So and again, like someone came to me and said, can you help me with this team? And I was like, yeah, no worries. And I was struggling to find a team for this guy that could do it in less than 8 minutes, because the waves take a long time and we didn't have the guaranteed turn meter control for the boss. So it just ended up taking a lot of time to kind of cycle back through, defeat the shield again, try and get turn meter down again. The AIs are all dumb.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, so we agree on Fire Knight. What about the next one? I think it's Spider, right? Spider,
yeah, I think so. And I think with Spider's one of the hardest to first beat. For most people, that's kind of like one of the big stumbling blocks to get their Arbiter, I would say, is beat Spider 20 on auto. But funny for me, Spider, once you've done it, I feel like it becomes one of the easiest. Like,
yes,
you build up to it, it's hard, and then all of a sudden you get a team that just sinks. You're like, okay, this is now probably my quickest of the normal dungeons.
What are you talking about? Hope is a dangerous thing.
Yes, especially Spider 20, right? I mean, I assume it's just about collecting for everybody. It's just about collecting enemy max HP damage champions and voila, especially with AI now, customizer in the game. And then, and to your, exactly. And to your point too, even later stages Spider, I feel like if you have, a good HP burn champion like Akoth the Seared or Mordecai or something like that, then you can make a fairly accessible team around them, right? To tackle the harder level spiders. Yeah.
And as I say, I played the game for a couple of years now. When I first played the game, there were very few, and they were hard to get legendary champions with an AoE HP burn. So we've definitely got more options now. And, one of them being a Doom Tower epic, albeit it takes a long time to get him. At least there's some and Drexar as a Bazaar champion. So there's definitely more accessible champions now to help you beat that dungeon, which may be why it's where it is on the list, because actually the first time I was trying to beat this dungeon with the champions that I had available, it was incredibly difficult, like really, really difficult.
Yes, dude. Yes. It's like back in 2019 when I started playing, I think that everybody probably shared the same experience as us, man. It's just like, dude, this is impossible. Like, how am I supposed to beat this?
Like, who
this
should
boss?
we use for this? It took me a long time. And I had Ignatius sitting in my vault, literally doing nothing. And I can't remember who it was now, but I saw someone post a video of Ignatius burning this spider. And that's before we kind of understood the mechanics of AoE, HP burn, and what it really did.
Yes.
And I was watching, I was like,
how's that working?
what is my Ignatius doing in the vault?
Yeah.
He's like my ticket to beat this boss for the first time. So yeah, it's fun.
One of those light bulb moments, man. Yeah, it's definitely the same for me. It's like, wow, okay, apparently HP burn champions can slay. So yeah, Spider, if you have the champions, great. If you don't, then it can be very, very challenging, especially progressing for the first time, beating 18, 19. I found that people struggle on 18, 19 almost as much as 20 and beyond.
Yeah, 19 especially, because there just seems to be so many magic champions that are great for Spider or magic or spirit, and it was just kind of like, well, who's going to deal with the force level?
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, next up.
Yeah, so I think probably the faction war keeps,
yes,
right?
the Red Boss.
Yeah,
that's his name. Is that his official name, Red Boss?
I don't know. Actually, yeah, I don't.
I think so. So yeah, I mean, they can be super challenging, right? I mean, depends on which one, but especially I hate the ones that have the life switch, the HP. When they're low on HP, they switch with your team.
Yeah, that one, and for me, the other one which I find quite tricky is the one that ignores defense.
Yes.
So it's not so much as that difficult to beat. You just have to build your champions in a way that doesn't make sense for anywhere else in the game. So everyone just like super high HP, no defense, and you have to rebuild them almost once you're beating it. Yeah, I think again, like Faction Wars originally was really hard. So hard. Couldn't even get to the bosses originally. It was so overtuned. And they've since nerfed it a couple of times, and nowadays probably not quite as difficult, but still a challenge.
Yeah, I was gonna say though, you're right. They had to nerf it. They nerfed it what, twice?
At least, yeah, maybe 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. What was your most difficult faction war?
For me, it was Dwarf. Dwarf was one. So they just released a bunch of these good dwarfs. It was hard, really hard.
Yeah, back in the day. Yeah, man, I did it without Torment. I didn't have Torment. I didn't do the fusion for him, so it was difficult for me too. I really leaned on Rockbreaker. Rockbreaker was my dude.
Yeah, it's actually Rockbreaker. So I had Torment. I ended up subbing him out for Rockbreaker, and that's what did it for me in the end. Yeah.
There you go. I guess Torment wouldn't have made a difference then. So now we're getting into the top 5. The top 5 most difficult here. So let's go with, and this is kind of tricky because all of these champions are so dependent on who you have, but we went Frost Spider. So again, like that's really so predicated on having a good HP burn champion, right?
Yeah, but I feel like there's at least some rares that can step in. Coffin Smasher can step up to the mark and help. But I think the hardest thing with Frost Spider is when the ads are alive, her resistance is really high. So it's really hard to land those burns when the ads are alive. But I think, again, if you got yourself Drexar from the Bazaar, you can probably just about get the job done without too much trouble. And I think it's a bit like Ice Golem. It's a long fight if you haven't got great champions, but I don't think it's that difficult with mechanics.
No, I agree with you. It's to me, I mean, we're still putting it top 5, so she's tough.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's like when you get to, I don't know, level 50, 60 plus, then the main challenge is actually just smacks really hard. Like throwing a load of debuffs on you, hitting hard,
Yeah, I remember the first time I tackled any of these Doom Tower bosses, I'm like, oh my god, they're so tough. Especially the newer ones, the 2 newer ones, and that's who we have next is the Eternal Dragon, right?
Yeah, well, so we put it quite high on the list. I actually run Rotus with Sifi and then a counter-attack champion. So again, like I don't run a quick team here. I'm literally just wearing it down. I just wear it down. I throw in a Basher to push back the abilities of the Eternal Dragon, and then Sifi's healing me, and I'm counter-attack, so I'm just kind of like pushing hits in consistently. And actually, the gear that you get from this boss, I think, is probably the best gear from the Doom Tower.
Good,
so well worth getting a team together for this one.
Yeah, I love that, and I love the Guardian too on the Griffin as well. I mean, it's more niche, but I like that gear. All right, next up we have number 3, Nether Spider. Nether Spider. So very difficult boss.
Yeah, since they changed the boss and made the Nether Spider go first with the Spiderlings, it's completely different. The boss is completely different.
Right.
Yeah, and not being able to do things like the max HP that you could do straight away. So all of the changes they made absolutely made this boss like tons more difficult. And I feel like unless you're bringing in some good cleansers, you're going to struggle with this boss all the time. So for me,
100%, man. We're aligned there. I just go double, triple cleanse. That's my strategy, right? So I run like Raglan, Reliquary Tender. It was actually your channel that I picked up on Reliquary Tender, like way back in the day. And you were like high on her very early on, like very, very early on, like 2 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, if HellHades is really high on this champion, I'm going to try her out. And now I fell in love after that, man. She's my favorite rare champion. I used her on my main...
In fact, she's in my team. She's in my team
me
now.
too.
I've got all these legendaries. She's still in my team.
Me too. So I run Ugo, Lydia, Reliquary Tender, and Drexar, Blood Twin, and Raglan. That's my team.
Yeah. So Drexar is the champion.
Yeah.
For me. Drexar, so you take those hits, he puts the HP burn on everywhere else, every time he takes those hits, and then at that point, it's literally like, sit back, get your cleansers in there, and let him do the damage. Don't worry about trying to bring more damage dealers in. Eventually, that spider is going to be dead. But you need to make sure that you cleanse. So I actually run a really similar team. I run Raglan, Reliquary Tender, Drexar, and then I run Doom Priest as an extra, like every turn cleanse. And I run Seal. So Seal for me puts on the decreased speed and is another like just top up of health. So whenever she gets a turn, she gives us a bit more health. But it's
I should
tough
use
boss.
Seal. I should use my girl more often, man. I should.
Without you, I feel broke like I'm half.
It make me feel bad. But yeah, you're right. It's a really solid team, and dude, you touched on it there. But one of the best things they've done in this game is add Drexar to the Bazaar, right?
Yeah.
Like such an
I remember
important
people were
champion.
upset about it as well at first. People were really upset that he was the champion, but tell you what, he's so good.
Dude,
So
he's
good.
like one of the most important champions after Doom Tower was added, Before that, kind of niche spider, burn, whatever. But now, it's just like, dude, I use him on, I don't know, 2 or 3 of the Doom Tower bosses. So,
Really... And you see, if you look at people's like best teams, just check it. How many Doom Tower bosses have got Drexar in their team? So many.
Even anti-affinity, it doesn't matter, he's definitely a really, really solid champion. I'm so glad they did that. It'd be cool to see them add another champion like that to the Bazaar,
definitely.
right? But anyway, going on to our top 2 here. This is very tough to choose between these two.
We kind of had a little bit of a difference of opinion here, didn't we?
We did.
It's so tight.
You're
tight.
right.
I mean, I think we ended up with Scarab being the second.
Yes.
Could go either way though.
I mean, you had the Griffin. I had the Scarab King. But to your point, it was like a coin flip for both of us. It was very close. So we went with Scarab King second hardest. I don't know, man. Scarab King, first of all, you need to build champions with Destroy for him. So you need like separate builds. And especially as you scale difficulty, dude, he's challenging. It's not as easy as it was before where you can just load up some, I don't know, whatever, Destroy gear and just support your team. Now it's like, it's almost a race with him. Like he's really challenging.
I do find that he's once you understand him really well, you can get a team together. But the higher the level you go, the faster he's getting, and the more challenging he is, and the more accuracy he's coming out with, which means he's just going to be ripping off your shields and all sorts. So really tough boss. Tough boss. The thing which when I was on stream, actually, someone said to me, what you need to do is make sure that your shield champion is your fastest champion, and it's unnatural. It's unnatural to do it. Normally, it's your speed champion is going to be your fastest. You make sure that the person who's putting your shields on is your fastest champion, and that the amount of turns that their shield goes on for is the same as their cooldown on that ability. Then, provided you can turn me to control him, then you're always going to keep your shield up. That's the main thing with him. Keep your shield up, and you've got a good chance. But it's a tough part. Like you said, you absolutely have to set people up to deal with it. And specific builds, and it's really tough.
Yeah, he's really added a lot of value to like there's only a few champions out there with like the cooldown of their shield lasting the duration of their shield as well, like Valkyrie, Lodric, Metal Sharper or whatever, Shaper. But not a lot of options out there. But the good news on Scarab King though is a lot of the other champions that do well, like Cold Heart and Armiger, are a little bit more accessible than all these legendaries on the other bosses. So I guess that's a good tiebreaker, to differentiate between the Griffin and the Scarab King. All right, man. The Griffin, the hardest boss in the game. What is your strategy for this dude? Why do you think he's the hardest?
Yeah, so for me, I think Griffin's just the hardest because there's not that many strategies that can really do this well. I don't see many. And for me, I use ally attack champions.
Same.
So, sorry, my dogs are going off. I try and just kill this boss before he gets going, because the more stacks he gets, the more challenging he becomes. And if he gets beyond like 15 stacks, he's going to one-shot pretty much anybody on your team.
Oh,
so yeah.
He's so
he's really
difficult. I don't know how to... Have you seen like a free-to-play friendly strategy for him at higher levels? I don't think I have.
I know that Stu does a lot of stuff like this, Stu Gaming.
Yeah.
So if I was to point in a direction, Stu's channel would probably be the one to go and have a look.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's done some stuff with like... and I think he uses like Coffin Smasher. He uses Coffin Smasher a lot for the kind of more accessible teams because of that HP burn. And HP burn doing a lot of damage against these bosses.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a tough one. And it does seem like someone like Brogni is particularly good here. And Drexar again. I see Drexar a lot, but it's not an easy boss by any shape. Yeah, it's really tough.
Nah, super tough boss. Good gear, but tough.
Yeah.
Really challenging. And I think they're going to add 2 more bosses as well. So we'll see if they make the list of the the most difficult, if they beat the Griffin. But I agree with you. Griffin is a very, very challenging. And actually, Griffin, I think on the highest levels, Hades, I think it's the only boss that I can't just auto because I'm not 100%, like I'm probably 50% on the hardest levels, if that, So it's almost like RNG if I can even beat it, I have to try a few times.
Yeah, I do, but my team is so legendary heavy. It's probably the only team where I'm not pulling in any kind of what I'd call normal champions. I've got Sifi, Double Rotus, Drexar and Steel as my level 90 auto team. And it does work. It's not the quickest, but you got Rotus. Both Rotus are just kind of stacking up their HP so that they can deal with the big hits.
Yeah.
And then Sil and Sifi between them, resurrections and heals, and Drexar for the HP burn again, just because it does such a lot of damage. But yeah, it's really difficult, really tough.
I'm the same way. I have, again, I go double ally attack, so I have Creela, Necret, Sil the Drakes, Martyr, and Turvold is my team. But again, here, it's not like those are easy. I mean, like some Void legendaries and whatnot. It's not like it's an easy, accessible team. That's why it's challenging to make guides on end game guides on these champions or on these bosses, because it's just like, okay, who has all these champions? So.
I do find as well with the Doom Tower stuff, it becomes to the point where it's so specific around what your account has got.
Yeah,
I find it much more difficult to do a guide on a Doom Tower boss compared to a Dragon or what have you, because with Dragon and what have you, you tend to talk about the types of mechanics that you need, whereas I think you really need to look at someone's account and say, you know what, that fits with this to be able to really kind of help you with that boss. Becomes more difficult. So
thanks so much for coming on, Hades. Really appreciate it, man. We're gonna go do a video on your channel as well. My viewers, check that out. I think that you guys are probably all acquainted with and familiar with HellHades YouTube channel, but if you're not, check it out in the description below, along with his Twitch and his Twitter information. Hades, thanks so much for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Always good coming on, man. Always good to have a chat as well. Thanks very much, and no doubt we'll do it soon. Yeah, man. Likewise. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching all the way till the end. Appreciate you guys, and as always, take care, guys.